I'm Brian Deese from the National Economic Council. We just completed a major fiscal deal in Washington. And so I want to walk you through what was in that deal, who got what, and what it means for our economy. So the deal that the President just signed makes major progress in all four of these areas. Let's start with taxes for the middle class. Without this deal, taxes were scheduled to go up by about $2,200 for the typical middle class family. Because of this deal, that's not going to happen. Instead, we are going to make permanent low rates for middle class families. In addition, this deal continues important tax credits for working families called the Earned Income Tax Credit and the Child Tax Credit. These put money in the pockets of families that need it the most and help our economy as well. And finally, this deal fixes something that's called the alternative minimum tax, which has been plaguing our tax code for decades. It's complex, and it threatened to hit lots of middle-class families. For the first time in more than 20 years, we have Democrats and Republicans coming together to vote for a bipartisan tax increase that will help us pay for the things we need and move the economy forward. It has a couple of components. The first is that for the wealthiest Americans, the top tax rate that they pay is going to return to where it was during the Clinton administration. Second, the rates on capital gains and dividend income are going to go up as well. And when you combine what happened with this deal with the capital gains and dividend rate increases that were in the Affordable Care Act, the health care reform bill, then going forward, people making over $250,000 will pay about a 19% on their capital gains and dividend income, and people making over $450,000 will pay about a 24% rate. Third, the tax benefits that the wealthiest Americans receive in the form of deductions and exemptions will be slowly reduced, starting at $250,000 in income. And fourth, the tax rate that the wealthiest estates, the largest estates in this country pay, will increase from 35% to 40%. If you step back and you look at these two pieces together, making the tax code permanently pro-middle class and making sure that the wealthy pay a little bit more back to what they were paying in the Clinton administration, what this deal does is makes the tax code as progressive as it has been in decades. Now third, this was a deal about taxes, but it was about more than that as well. First, it gives companies a strong incentive to make the investments that they need to create jobs next year by both extending tax credits like the R&E tax credit and allowing companies to write off half of any new capital expenses that they make next year. Second, this deal extends a critically important tax credit called the production tax credit, which provides renewable power companies an incentive to make the investments they need to grow. Third, this deal extends a tax credit that we call the American Opportunity Tax Credit. But what it does is it gives every person who's trying to go to college the potential to receive a $2,500 tax credit, if they're eligible, to help defray the cost of college. And finally, this deal extends unemployment insurance for a full year so that those people who are out there looking every day to find a job in an economy that is still very tough have those benefits in their pocket, and that our economy benefits from the spending that those unemployment benefits generate. And finally, the President has been focused for a long time now on reducing our deficit, which is the difference between the amount that we spend and the amount that we're taking in tax revenue, in a balanced, responsible way. Without this deal, the wealthy were paying lower taxes. Now, with this deal in place, they're going to pay a little bit more, and that additional amount helps contribute to reducing the deficit in the future. And when you take into account all of the provisions that we've talked about here, it's not a trivial amount of money. In fact, if you, based on estimates that the Congressional Budget Office has made, and that's the official scorekeeper for these types of things here in Washington, based on their numbers, this deal will reduce the deficit by about $740 billion over the next 10 years. And this $740 billion is important because it comes on top of the deficit reduction efforts we've already made. And last year, through the Budget Control Act and prior spending bills, this president has already signed into law $1.7 trillion in spending reductions. We are building the foundation for the kind of balanced deficit reduction that we need. Now, the president has said he wants to do more. He believes we need to do more. But the important thing that he has made clear through this deal and that he's going to focus on going forward is that deficit reduction needs to be balanced. Any additional spending cuts need to be coupled with additional revenue increases because that's the right way to do deficit reduction, and that's what we've shown in the context of this deal. So that's basically what came out of the fiscal cliff. I know it can be very confusing. There's a lot of back and forth. But at the end of the day, the important things to remember are this. Middle-class families are going to see continued lower tax rates because of this deal. The wealthiest Americans are going to go back to paying about the same amount of taxes that they paid during the Clinton administration. We're going to do a couple really important things to keep our economy growing and help clean energy manufacturing and those who are desperately looking for work here in America. And finally, we've made another important contribution to reducing our deficit in a balanced way. We've got a lot more to do, but this is a very important step for our economy and for middle-class families.